Just a very weak AFC South. Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, Raiders. I think Kansas City under 11.5 is one of my favorite bets. Broncos 9.5, Chargers 9.5, Raiders 6.5. I'd probably go over Chargers, but the under on Kansas City. Remember, they were 11-0 in one-score games. Like recovering fumbles, regression is coming. Even if they go 8-3, nobody goes 11-0 in one-score games. Also, they're still trying to figure out their offensive line. Joe Tooney left, their best offensive lineman. And they don't, they're using somebody's backup at left tackle. They're an injury away in the O-line from being a complete mess. They're also getting older in key spots.
Yeah. So I want to talk about the Broncos here because I think 9.5, like they always kind of talk about in the NFL, like winning 10 games is a hard thing to do still, 10, 11. That's why like even winning 12 games. That's why saying the Dallas Cowboys winning 12 games, 3 years in a row is like a legitimate accomplishment because winning 12 games in the NFL is a difficult thing to do, even with like the extra game and whatnot. So it's like if you say, oh, I think the Broncos will win 10 games, it's like not even necessarily an insult technically, but and it's, I try not to get too hung up on the bottom line number of wins and losses because it's just like, so one team who wins 10 games is like kind of okay, and then a team that wins 12 or 13 games, so just a few more games, it's like night and day. This is a top team in the NFL. They're amazing, Super Bowl contender, and it's just like, well, we know how football unfolds sometimes, right? We know how sometimes a game can get away from you, an untimely injury where someone doesn't return in the second half, the fourth quarter, whatever it may be. Short rest, going up against a team that has a lot of extra rest, like there's many factors at play here. I guess I think the thing that stands out to me though is with this Broncos team is you're essentially saying that this team is not necessarily going to be any different, that they're not going to be better. Now the reason why I think like you could be okay with a win-loss total like this is if we're saying that this division really is pretty darn good, and the wins will be tough to come by, and whatnot. And so you are going to maybe get an extra couple losses in there that you normally could have been able to say, okay, those are some easy wins. And I've talked a lot about this division being, incredibly tough, and I think these games are going to be like just, can't miss TV, quite frankly. So this division for a long time was kind of skippable, honestly. I mean, there was some years where it was like, oh, the Broncos are playing the Raiders, like, cool, I guess, like you would, what other games are on right now? And now you're gonna be like, all right, Broncos Chargers, like, let's go. Chiefs Broncos, like, it's gonna be money. Chargers Broncos, Chargers Chiefs, whatever. But I just based off of the moves that they've made already, and I've talked a lot about this with the Broncos, I just can't imagine that they're not going to be better, because just in a vacuum, Bo Nix will be better. And so that alone will make this team better. Not to mention, Sean Payton will be better because he has an extra year now of coaching specifically Bo Nix, and that's all also matters from a continuity standpoint. So he will be a better coach because he understands Bo Nix, and so Bo Nix in a vacuum is just going to be better by virtue of him not being a rookie anymore, plus now having the added benefit of Sean Payton understanding him deeply. Like it's this feedback loop here. And not to mention now improving the quality of the team, that's going to make everyone better, and we don't even have the draft yet. So it's just hard for me to see them not at the very least repeat the levels of success that they had last season, and at a minimum take at least a half step forward. I struggle to see how. The only way I don't see that happening is if they if they really just have unfortunate injuries, and they did get a couple big players who flirt with injuries, and so that could totally happen. I could technically see that, but I try to never try to predict injury outcomes, because that's a fool's errand. I have no idea. But I'm excited, and I know that there's never a guarantee that the sophomore slump and all of that, and I go back and forth between how real that is and how real that isn't, and I think it so much depends on the team and the coaching staff more than anything than the individual quarterback. So I'm just not expecting Bo Nix just to like really be not good, and people are like, oh man, this is a textbook sophomore slump. Like, It's harder for me to see that. If it did happen with Bo Nix, then that would actually kind of be an experience for me to actually really file away and be like, hey, sophomore slumps are real, even when you have, a really good team, great defense, good O-line, great coach. Like it's a real thing that you have to, not push away and accept that that's a real phenomenon in the in the NFL. But I'm just not prepared to kind of build a take around this notion of a sophomore slump. And again, everyone loves to now keep referencing CJ Stroud, and that's just a nonsensical example. I mean, it's just, that team was a mess, unfortunately for them. They were a mess offensively, injuries, the coach, the coordinator didn't shape up the way how they thought it was going to. Like it was a messy year. So right, are sophomore quarterbacks set up to be able to overcome still a lot? Like no, they definitely still need to have a very supportive environment around them. They still need some hand holding. Just the reality. Bo Nix is still going to need his hand held at certain moments. He's going to make some mistakes. There's probably going to be times that Sean Payton gives him a little too much and realizes, all right, you're still not ready for that. That's totally fine. That's totally fair game. And I think a great coach understands that. They understand that it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 3 steps forward, 3 steps back. Like they understand. It's not just linear. So, I would be stunned if Sean Payton doesn't deeply understand that. And quite frankly, I believe that also someone like a Bo Nix is incredibly intelligent and incredibly grounded, that he's also going to understand that. So if he has a bad game or fails in a single moment, he's not going to be like, why am I not getting this? What's wrong with me? And some quarterbacks are like that. So a lot of players are head cases. I think that's another thing that people also really fail to realize. I played with enough athletes who are just kind of like this no matter what. And I play with other people where you're just like, bro, you need to settle down. It's okay. We got this. There's a lot of babying that needs to take place. And I think that's something that you don't always get to see on TV, and we only ever see like the really extremes of it, like the divas, the ones who are carrying on the sidelines. Believe me, like sometimes it comes out in so many different ways, and I think that also is a contribution to why you sometimes see some inconsistent play and sophomore slumps, so to speak, because they had a great first year and they think like this is just who they are now, they're ready to rock, and then like they kind of like hit reality where they're not, and like their world kind of gets shattered a little bit. Again, Tom Brady spoke to this, not exactly in this, but I love using this as an example, because if Tom Brady himself admitted that he thought that it was originally really easy to win Super Bowls, and then once he went in this 10-year drought or however long it was, he was like, oh my God, this is so much harder than I thought. Like if Tom Brady could be fooled, anyone can be fooled. So I think it matters, but I just get the deep understanding that Bo Nix is incredibly grounded, and I think the level of success that he had last season was done in such a way that does not make him feel like he is on top of the world, unstoppable. I think there was an effect like that with CJ Stroud. There was the feeling of CJ Stroud, man, like, oh my gosh, he's already a top 5 quarterback. He's going to take over MVP. Like no one's calling for Bo Nix to be the, front runner for MVP, but you had a ton of people saying CJ Stroud, front runner MVP, same thing with Jordan Love, et cetera, et cetera. I think Bo Nix had a much slower, more, not consistent, but much more stable incline in success and growth that I think just makes it a little bit more grounded. That's why I always think that there's tremendous benefit to failing, tremendous benefit, and the earlier you fail, kind of the better, because you're now building this foundation off of the understanding of I can fail at any moment. Doesn't mean I'm bad, doesn't mean I'm terrible, doesn't mean I'm a loser, doesn't mean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in a lot of ways, Bo Nix has experienced that even in college, right? Like even earlier on in his, pseudo professional high level career. So I think it matters. I think all of that matters as to why I really think that Bo Nix will continue to grow, evolve, and even though he will still have some roadblocks to face in his second year, I just don't think it'll be something that can kind of spiral. I think you did see that a little bit with the CJ Stroud. There was kind of a moment where it was like he's unsure of himself, he's getting happy feet, he's uncomfortable in the pocket. Yeah, the O-line's not good, but he's also just not, having a lot of trust right now in himself and the players around him. Like things just kind of got messy. They got messy, noisy, and it was just kind of chaotic. Again, I fail to see how that's possible with the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix. And so I know this is a long-winded way of saying like I just have a lot of belief in this team and what they'll be able to accomplish. And you know, again, I'm not going to come out here when last season when it was like 6 wins or 5 wins or whatever the total was, I was like, this is so insane. This is wild. This is how little they think of the Denver Broncos, you know. And you can't say that with a 9.5 win total because it's just, you know, it's a few game difference between a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, who we know everyone thinks the world of. It's just kind of how the numbers unfold. So I can't come out here and be like, this is so disrespectful. But, you know, I still think like, I don't know. And I know they kind of have to kind of use some of these half numbers to make it work. And so it's like either going to probably be 10.5 or 9.5. And if you're going to say that they're 10.5, then they're only 1 game behind the Chiefs. Like, I'm just trying to think of mathematically and logically how they try to create some of this type of stuff. A lot of it is psychologically driven to try to get people to, you know, place certain bets and whatnot. But I just think 10 and 11 wins is a pretty safe, you know, prediction, quite frankly, which then puts them back to being a top team, a consistent team now, you know, having back-to-back years and, you know, continuing to just take these steps forward. So, you know, sometimes when I do videos like this, like I talk myself up in such like a heightened, hyped state where I'm just like, right now, like it feels like we have a football game, you know, next weekend, like, you know, Broncos Chiefs Sunday, you know, and I'm like, no, dude, it's April. Like we have legitimately like 5 solid months, like not like kind of 5, like we have 5 full months left. So it's a long one, man. It's a long one. We'll get there. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Denver Broncos and their projected win total? I don't know if this is in order of anything specifically where they actually think though that the Broncos will be second in the division, or if it's just kind of like how it was. But I don't know if that's actually anything or not, because obviously it's 9.5. So but let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.